Good morning and welcome to Who Am I? I have no idea whether this show will be published, broadcast, or just archived. I just feel compelled to do it, so here I am. Who am I? Actually, I say these things because part of me is disinclined to publish right now. I am instead just inclined to do it, to go there. This is my master class. We're just gonna we're gonna talk about the universe. The master class. What are we gonna call it? Who am I? Who am I? 305, 405, graduate class for sure. Who am I? And see, this is the problem. I turn on the speaker. I mean the microphone, and then all of a sudden, see, I was riffing about this earlier. I was in the zone. But what I'm trying to figure out how to do is to capture the zone at the same time that I'm recording or broadcasting or something, hit the true zone when I'm communicating with somebody else. That's what I want to do so that somebody actually understands what I'm doing. I want somebody to actually click and look at me, and I want their jaw to drop as implications about themselves and others and the possibilities. I want their jaws to drop as the implications flood their mind and they go, holy crap, I realize what you are showing me, what I am looking at, and what it implies about the structure of us all. That's what I want to have happen at some point. But that's not going to happen until I can more dependably and more clearly tap into mm, this set of information that I am, that we are, and express to you what the vantage point is that will achieve both a um, practical and helpful consciousness of reality as it stands, because you need that. You need to understand where we actually are in actual physicality, and also what it means and how to move forward blessedly, um, constructively. Constructively is actually the key to the secret, because what everybody is, they are crazy with destruction. There is a But I don't really know. I think it's going to be less violent than it has been in the past, this destruction that we see. And, oh, so what am I getting at? What am I getting at? Because actually, I've gone off into a kind of a murky zone, and I can tell. I know I have. It's because I'm kind of thinking about current events, and I'm air quoting current events because there's a whole lot of different current events. And which current events might I be referring to in my mind as I'm thinking about current events? Oh, this actually goes to a concept I used to talk about. It has to do with the way people miss each other in their definitions of words. So I'm talking about one thing. Maybe we're going to discuss hotels, and I'm against them. for some reason in somebody else's forum, and we're talking about them and we're arguing. And it appears that we're arguing conceptually because I like hotels and you don't, or I don't like hotels and you do. It doesn't matter. The thing is when I say the word hotel, I'm perhaps referencing some sort of dark, terrible experience that I had. And I'm thinking about, having been robbed or some whatever. The last time I stayed at a hotel, and you, on the other hand, are thinking about, whatever. So when we say the word hotel, one thing comes into my mind, different thing comes into your mind. We appear to be arguing about hotels, the word hotels. But we're not arguing. And as a matter of fact, if you could go into my mind's eye and look at what I am looking at, what I am plugged into feeling and what I'm talking about, what I think is going on out there. You would, if we would communicate more accurately, we would be arguing a lot less. Because in actual fact, most people are not arguing about. If you get down to fundamentals, you can find places where people agree. Where they start disagreeing is in what they believe the nature of the universe is and how they think that facts are spinning out, how they're playing out on the ground. Oh, there's a fact here, there's a couple of facts, I see them converging. My idea of how the world works says that the equations run XYZ and it's going to play out dark, maybe. And you, with your loving, supportive perspective, very optimistic and cheerful, and tagged directly into source and all things, you have a different idea about how it's going to play out. And the truth is, all of it. Hurt people, hurt people. There's all kinds of things true about the human psyche. You got to add it all up. You don't pick and choose. Although you kind of do. You kind of pick and choose, and you kind of don't pick and choose. You kind of add it all up. You add it all up, and then you pick and choose how you focus in. You don't necessarily pick and choose how you put it together. I, well, so this comes to a piece of advice. Did I tell you this was a master class? Who am I? And so what you actually do is you add it all up to yourself. You have all the facts, everything that you have ever come across, everything that you have encountered, every frequency that you have ever had to deal with. You've witnessed it, you've felt it, you've read it, you've learned it through a class, or you've come across it, whatever. You've all things that you have come across, all thoughts, ideas, experiences, information. You have to add that up because what you're trying to figure out is how you small you fit into a wholeness of everything else that you experience. That's your job. You have to add it all up. Now that you have added it all up and you understand how it fits together, now you pick and choose as to how you focus. You don't pick and choose as to how it fits together. You're not fitting it together. There is a different thing that is putting it together. There's a pattern, there's a flow. So now what am I talking about there? Um, the mechanics of addition consciousness. Now, how it works is you're living your life, and absolutely, even now, but certainly a lot when I was younger, you come across information and you don't know what to do with it. It feels like something to you, but you don't know you don't know how to put it into logic or um, reality in any way. What am I talking about? For instance, I was born and raised into a religion. And this religion has a custom of on the first Sunday of every month, they have something they call fast and testimony meeting. And this particular meeting, instead of having talks given by different members of the congregation assigned by the bishop on certain topics, certain spiritual topics, which then you have to research through the next week, and then you get up and you give your talk to the congregation in sincerity. Instead, on fast and testimony meeting, everybody the mic would be thrown open. It's sort of open mic day as people step up to the podium and express their sincere appreciation for the spirit of this great church and how it has blessed their lives and and they'll tell different stories. Most of these stories, as far as I'm concerned, what we're looking at is they are talking about deep connection to their inner being. Because a lot of their stories talk about, hearing the still small voice within them as it warned them to, or didn't warn them, but inspired them to turn left instead of right on a particular day. And then come to find out, had they turned right, they would have been murdered. Or, that might be an extreme, but they're stories like that. And these people, I knew they weren't lying to me, but they were giving all the credit to their church. They were saying that all of these blessings are implications. They are proving that this church that we believe in is correct in all of its ways. Well, I didn't believe that I did not, it did not seem correct that what they thought, if this, then that, I didn't think that they were referring to was all that correct. I felt that this was sincere, you know? But so why did I bring that up? Because this was something that I didn't know what to do with. And so I just put it somewhere. I put it in, I called it the place where everything goes. And it struck me later, in decades later, how similar, in a way, is this concept to the room of requirement, sort of this room where everything goes. But anyway, that doesn't matter. That then becomes whatever you need, whatever is required. At any time, this room can transform into, and when you need it to be the place to put everything, well, that's that too. Then it got burned up by dragon fire, but I don't know whether that's probably where the analogy falls apart. In any case, so as you live your life and you experience things that you don't know what to do with, you don't know how they fit, but somehow everything fits. The universe, you could see it like a giant cryptogram, and every single thing clues you to every single thing. There's a big giant puzzle out there to be read, to be learned, to be understood. And at the deep central spiritual heart of this puzzle is the question, who am I? Who am I? Now, one of the rules of the game is don't believe anything that does not make sense to you. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a structure in your mind that makes sense. You can't believe things that don't make sense, because when you do, then your your logic structure falls apart. You can't bridge a gap of uh, of logic and meaning through the mechanism of faith. I mean, you can, but don't do it. Don't do it. Only believe what makes sense. Now, what happened to me, and I think that given enough time, it would happen to everybody, because I believe that this is a central truth. Actually, it turns out I don't, there's part of me that doesn't really have any passion about it. It's just, you know, I see what I see, and it is what it is. And then there's the experience of life, which is kind of a different thing. But um, so let me gather my thoughts here, because which thread do I want to go back and pick up? Don't believe don't believe anything that doesn't make any sense to you. And what's going to happen is, at some point, you're still going to recognize, oh, there's a pattern, there's a flow, there is a great being, there is a great spirit, there is a great love, and a great allness, and a great knowing that is surrounding us from all sides. That's what I think, that no matter if you just relax, and regardless of the pain, and regardless of the conditions, and regardless of anything, just know that this huge truth exists. It's what all the people who are building all the churches and going to all the churches that they built know. It's what they know. That there is a great organizational flow about us all. There is one of us here. There is one of us here, and that's true. That's true. So on the one hand, and on the other hand, you are absolutely divinely autonomous. Your individuality is special. As a human being, your what do they call it? Uh, what do they call it? Your free will, your free agency is is vast and spectacular. What your free agency actually is is the freedom to walk away from source energy, to walk away from the source impulse that is actually at the thrumming base um, vibration, the core vibration, the fundamental vibration that you are. You can walk away from that and just go off on your own. You can do that. As a human being, most other creatures are consigned to working in tandem and in synchrony and in blessed harmonic resonance with the rest of the field. Human beings can go off on our own shit. And the reason that we can is because we have this thinking brain. And this thinking brain can think not in alignment with the great mind. It absolutely can do it. How does it do it? When it goes off on a negative jag, on a hateful, negative, suffering jag. Now, if you were to, stand in the middle of a hateful, negative exercise of some sort and look around at what you're experiencing, you would recoil inside of yourself. You would be recoiling inside of yourself, because as you gaze at this experience, what you're actually doing is you're saying, this is not me. This is not me. As you stare at it and focus on it, imagining that the conditions of this moment are the most important, excuse me, aspect of this display. You've got to really understand what our lives are about. Well, first of all, I would agree with all of us as we say, wouldn't it be nice if our lives were about trying to make the world a better place? Yes, everybody says, yes, yes, yes. Isn't that great? Now everybody goes off and does, some people are enslaving others to make the world a better place. Others are, committing genocide to make the world a better place because what they believe is da, 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 da. In a way, there is a slim way that even the negative are correct. A very, 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 very slim way that the negative are correct, while at the same time a chasmic, abysmal gulf about where they are wrong. Those who are negative, um, they are, and yet we are all very profoundly right in a way, while the negative amongst us in another way are also profoundly wrong. But they aren't wrong. We're right, but we're wrong, but we're right, but we're wrong. There is no wrong. Oh my gosh. You start getting into this place where now the mirrors go back and forth and you start getting, your head spins as you gaze into infinity and your words sort of choke up in your throat because how do you describe it from here on out? We live in a really cool universe. You got to know that. And we are vibrational beings in a vibrational universe. And the experience that we're having is actually, on the one hand, it's kind of material, but it's way more dreamlike than we have ever given it credit for. And the way to deal with it has to do with accepting its dreamlike nature, accepting your powerful position in your own universe, on the one hand. But you don't do that without the recognition of your pixel position in a larger flow of the matrix around you. So don't get full of yourself, is what I'm saying. You may be God, but you ain't the only one out there. And we're all God in a divine universe that actually the real God is way, way bigger. But it's all flowing together. There is a pattern that we are all a part of. And when I was younger, I used to visualize how to imagine this, how big we are, and how to try to imagine the world that you're trying to imagine is imagine that you are part of a movie. Everybody knows what a movie's like. You're in the middle of a movie, and this movie has been going on since the beginning of time. And human history, which actually turns out to be a really interesting subject. Don't go study somebody else's version of it. What you should do, or this, I don't know what you should do. This is what I did, and you can decide for yourself whether it had any veracity. But this is what I did, the way I studied history, and it has sort of given me a sense of who we are. I ask the question all the time, who am I? Who am I? But the bigger question is, who are we? That's the where I'm a pixel. Who am I? That's where I'm the universe. Who are we? That's where I'm a pixel. And then who are we in the greater field? Well, I've already pixelated us. I'm already a universe and a pixel. And how do both of those flow together? And how does all of this add up? And how do I get my stuff? How do I get what I want? Abraham came along and told me something that I didn't really quite realize. And that is the living of your life, the living of your conditional life, banging around in conditionality, contrast has already caused me to create a vortex of creation that is already bursting at the seams. with all of its pleasures and abundance and clarity and everything that I want. It's peace and it's, mm, oh, or whatever's in mine. I know what's in mine in a way. I know the things I love. And actually, I put peace on a very, 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 very high. I do like some exhilaration, but I am much more enamored of peace personally. Some people, they're more into the exhilaration, you know? They want to they want to feel the wind in their face. They're ready for that, so they're ready to jump out of planes. I just want the calmness of a. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's get back to what we were talking about. Uh, I read historical fiction about what I was interested in. And as I got a sense of a time period, I might try to start allowing some reference material in. I start with a book that I just read it because I liked it. And then I find another book that's more serious historical fiction by a serious historian who their whole aim is to try to illuminate a time period more accurately. And then there's others who just want to write about sex and they sort of loosely place it in a time period that they don't really know much about, but they want to write about the sex. And then that goes to the romance section. Anyway, there's all kinds of different historical fiction, but as you can intentionally start in your mind imagining what was that time period like, what did it feel like, what were the experiences like. There's so many ways to do this exercise of identification, as in identify cross identifying with the life of another human being. And you know what? We've made shows and all kinds of stuff about these concepts too, like shows like Quantum Leap, as every time he leaps directly into the life of another human being. Ooh, that was cool. But even masterpiece theater and stuff like that, historical period pieces as they, uh, especially when they're done by serious documentarians who are as accurate as they can be to their imagination of what the time period would have been like. And then you sort of just loosely don't soften the edges of it. Soften the edges of fiction for yourself and blend fiction and nonfiction together, and then intentionally start trying to imagine who you are and what it would have been like to live in that time period. And so I said it's like a movie. If you don't study history, then current events, even though they might seem like, weeks worth of events, they're like a snapshot, like a still frame photo within the movie. And you look at that and you might have some sense of what you're looking at, but you don't know what you're looking at. You're just you might be them doing a skit, you know, reenacting a little something as opposed to being fully who they really are in any given moment. You might have caught them, who knows what's really going on if all you see is a still photo. You can't you can't conclude anything from that. You got to study your history. And so I had several time periods that I was into. You can't study it all. There's every nationality and every time period, but you start getting a sense of who we are as human beings, especially go back and do some things like read some books like Clan of the Cave Bear, and try to add in some of that experience. She was a Cro-Magnon in a Neanderthal world. She was the others, and they were, and who knows where they came from. They were genetically similar enough that when Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons mated, they could produce offspring. We don't call them Cro-Magnons anymore. We call them anatomically modern humans. And I believe that they were created. I think that they were a genetically modified species. But that's just my opinion. That's the one that seems to make sense. I also have a little bit of evidence to show to show a fusion. Now, whether you can stand there and argue with me about how you think this fusion happened, but I have talked to people, and it's actually pretty unlikely to have been an accident. And the notion of improbability being likely on the grounds that, well, if you give a monkey a typewriter and enough time, he will type out the works of Shakespeare. That's actually not true on the one hand, uh, unless the monkey is a human being that evolved or somehow was transformed into William Shakespeare, who then typed out those works. Given enough time, yes. But that other argument, probability, the mathematics of probability actually makes that one fall apart. The universe is not random. It is not possible that the universe is random. There are too many things that had to come together at the same time for even one nucleotide in one of our cells to have come about. And there has to be so many things happening simultaneously and synchronistically for that are way more complex than that. There has to be another explanation. And there is another explanation. And it's actually quite a simple one. The explanation is feedback. There is a simple yes, no feedback system, a feedback mechanism in the system, or feedback system in the mechanism, however you want to look at that. There's a yes, no, growth, protection, love, fear. And every single cell that existeth in all of creation, every single cell knows how to respond to this yes, no impulse. Human beings are the ones that don't understand how to do it. Every other creature understands it. And do you know why? Because we have this neocortex, because we have this physical, rational, thinking brain that instead of just moving on an impulse, thinks it through. Now, on the one hand, you can see where the rational mind uh, can sidestep a knee-jerk negative. That's true. What the problem is when the rational mind goes down a negative road. Because the rational mind is not meant to be in the negative. The negative is for the knee-jerk response in the moment concerning a condition that you don't like. That's all. But when you take it as some sort of existential read on the meaning of the universe, you draw lines and you come to negative conclusions, and you lock yourself into negative states of being and then move in negative directions. That's the problem. That's the problem. And actually, that problem is the very definition of Shiva energy. demonic energy, Loki energy. It's crossed energy. It's people flowing in the wrong direction and uh, disrupting all previous construction of organization. That's what that is in a very fundamental way. And what we've got to do to get out of it is to understand this flow, this swirling. So back to, let's see, what do I want to go back to? I had said two things. One was that I have a vortex of creation that is already stuffed full of everything I already want. And all I have to do is get into alignment with that higher self that's holding all that stuff for me. And she will lead me to the physical experience of it all. That's the idea, I think, of the setup. She's over there holding the highest, you know, she's got all my stuff over there. I just have to go line up with her, and all my stuff will come forth. Be prepared. Everybody around you, on the one hand, is going to think you're a goody two shoes for thinking this way. They don't mind you acting this way. They are very irritated when you just think this way. I want to think this way. I want to think this way, and I want to help it be a framework for others to think this way. And then those who are inspired to act on their kind, connected, feeling hearts, I want to encourage all of that. And whenever it's appropriate, when something comes into my, a bird with a broken wing or a small creature that needs compassion, or one of my children that needs help along the way, she is stumbling on her path, I reach out and I act in compassion. But what I really want to do is I want to think. I want to think in the positive. I want to spin positive, constructive thoughts about who we are, what is possible, um, how to move forward, how to how to how to identify the object of the exercise, and from a clear intention start spinning my intention into gold, how to start spinning it into experience, into reality coming true, peace happening around me, understanding, comprehension dawning in people's minds, in people's eyes as they realize who we are, and certain things like what's happening out there politically. Um, the thing is there are certain aspects of what we have created that are coming crashing down. Parts of the temple are crashing down. But if we keep our eye on how the universe actually works and who we are in it, as the columns crash around us, we can, that's probably not the best analogy. It's more like, so we are vibrational beings in a vibrational universe. That's the primary truth. And I'm going to change the slide. I've got this, I see this as about a 12, 13-year-old girl sitting on the beach, gazing out to sea. Now, it would be, if it was me, that would be Kenya, Mombasa, Kenya. But that tree next to her is, it looks like a deciduous tree, one that's losing its fall leaves. So, but anyway, it doesn't matter. She's gazing out to sea, questioning, who am I? Who am I? So we are vibrational beings. And I'm going to show you this. These are cymatic patterns. And a cymatic pattern is, well, so cymatics was the study of how vibration and form relate to one another. And the field was pioneered by a man named Hans Jenny, who would put a granular medium onto a metal plate and then run a vibration through that plate and watch the little particles of sand dance into patterns, coherent patterns. This right here, these are digital cymatic patterns that have been put through some. You put a vibration through this thing, and as you change the vibration, it will change the readout, the pattern. This right here, this upper right and lower left, that's actually more of what Hanziani was doing. This is a metal plate. They've got a black one with a blonde medium, so you can tell. So it shows up really clearly. But these are the kind of patterns that would appear when he would pipe his frequency through it. Now, upper left and lower right, those are natural cymatic patterns, demonstrating even the snowflake there. There's frequencies everywhere. There's frequencies, every thought that's ever been thought, all of the thoughts that I'm thinking and words that I'm saying and vibrations that are happening there. The vibrations, they go on. The vibration, the representation of it is still out there forever and ever and ever. All things always exist. It's actually kind of, they just become more. And then that more exists, and more and more and more and more. And there's never less, it's always more. But the point of all that is that we live in a vibrational universe. And apparently, everything that you want. Oh, well, let's see if I can find that girl again. There she is. Ah, oh, so actually, what was I? Why did I do that? Oh, so imagine our time. What you're seeing, if you watch it vibrationally, what you're seeing one paradigm fall away and another one come into being. Now, you could watch in horror, and in your horror, what you would unfortunately watch is a monstrous world take shape in front of you. And you could do that. You could do that. Please don't. Please don't. You wouldn't be wrong. But we need to understand how very profoundly our attention and our focus is instrumental in bringing to us the world we are looking at. And so it's really important which world you're looking at. You could look in horror, you could see that, but you don't want to do that. What you want to do instead is gaze in wonder at the world that is coming into being. And if you focus on the one you want instead of staring in horror at the one you don't want, because I promise you, your attention is helping to bring that horror into. So, what you want to do is you want to recognize the truth of the horror over on the side of your vision. You look at it, you go, oh, horrible, got it, side vision. But now the question is, if you aren't going to look at the horrors in the center of your vision, what do you put in the center of your vision? Well, Abraham, in her own way, points this out all the time. What you're supposed to be paying more attention to than what you don't like is what you want. Pay more attention to what you want. Focus, put into the center of the aperture of your focus. Put in that what you want. In the peripheral side view, have that's where you put the stuff you don't like. You don't put it out of, you don't discard it altogether. It's there. I know that human beings are being very destructive to planet Earth, to Mother Gaia, to Mother Eden, even, if you want to call her a different name, Gaia, Eden, whoever she is. Our mother planet, we're being very destructive to her. And I believe that the reason that we do this is because we don't know who we are. We do not know who we are. And that is why I do my show, in service of a better understanding, a clearer understanding of who we are, where we have been, what we care about now, freedom, family, relationship, love, abundance, life, nature, peace, safety, fairness, honor. Um, what other kind of good words? Who am I? We are all of those things. And so this is the trick. So I don't believe that any of us really are evil frequencies. I think that all is God and all is blessed. There is only one, and that oneness is good. Now, having said that, there is the experience of something else. And since there really isn't any material reality, only experience, you could say that there is evil. But I don't believe, but there isn't a source of evil, like a fountain of darkness. It's not like that. What it is that there is God and God is mighty. And there is experience. I think that the godless part, especially, is an occurrence in the human world because it's a mind thing. There isn't any place in physicality where you can go without God. God is everywhere, God is everything. But there is an interesting place you can go to within a human mind that appears to leave God out of it. You can go to dark, dark, evil, horrible, painful, ugly places where you can feel worse and worse and worse and worse and worse within your own mind. You can do that. All you have done is gone to places in your thoughts that your inner being, who is also thinking, but she's not thinking those thoughts. And so you've gone there without her. You are godless. You are alone. And you are now on a ragged, hairy edge looking at something. You're looking at physicality from there. And you may be looking, it's not true that the things that you are looking at are happening, but the perspective that you have taken on them is painful and suffering making and horrifying. And why would you do that? Because it's true, but it's not true. If you went there in your thinking mind without the love and support of your inner being, then you are not where God is. Don't go into thinking places without taking your inner being with you. Go where she thinks. Think thoughts that she thinks. She's on to things. She's not, and as a matter of fact, she's not stodgy and um, limited the way our organized religions would have you believe that she is. She isn't. She's very sexual. She's very joyful. She's very playful. She doesn't judge anybody or anything, but she's not into pain. She's not into cruelty. She's into joy. She recognizes pain. She sees you causing yourself pain. She sees you causing each other pain. She's not particularly concerned about it because that's not what she's thinking about. Think about what she's thinking about. Now, recognize, don't blame yourself for being human. Being human is just what we are. Understand your mechanism. Your mechanism is good. When it feels bad, that means your equipment is working perfectly, telling you, ouch, ouch, hot stove. Don't keep putting your hand on the hot stove. That's all it's saying. Don't hate your hand for being able to feel heat. What you may start hating yourself for is, why the hell do I keep putting my hand on the hot stove? Well, there must be something there that is really interesting that I need to understand. Quit beating yourself up for it and know that there is something inside of you profoundly right. Find that profoundly right aspect of yourself and follow her progress. Realize that every time you went with this profoundly right person, things went more smoothly for you. And every time you resisted it and fought against it or hated yourself and denied yourself, that you made it hard and things went rough and rocky. Oh, isn't that funny that that's the time? That was the decade that went so off for me. My hardest decade. Oh God, what would my hardest decade have been? Would have been the 80s into about the mid 90s. Some of it was the most blessed time in there too, for sure. My children were born, and how profound was that? And some of the fun times that we had, and they were so cute, and I loved them so much. I still do. They're just not little anymore. They're getting ready to turn 35. Oh my goodness. Oh, well, part of that time period was when I was getting all worked up about everything from vivisection to big ag to multinational corporations to politics, everything. I was kind of all by myself, and I didn't really organize. My getting into it amounted to me um, giving a little bit of money. I didn't have very much money, to causes like the Nature Conservancy and uh, subscribing to magazines like Humane Farming and such, and voting for Jimmy Carter. That was almost the extent of my activism. But you know what? It was me becoming myself. It was me learning who I was. Because I wasn't raised in a household that taught me, well, this is what conservative thought is, and this is what liberal thought is, and this is how history relates to both of them, and this is the meaning of, this war, and this religion and that religion, and this political party, and this is what you do to live a successful life. Now, I had um, role model, what's the example of a parent who had sacrificed much for us collectively as a nation. He fought in the Marine Corps in World War II, joined up at 17 years old, and was fighting on Tarawa as a 50 caliber machine gunner. Came ashore on the second day, I think. He had to come aboard. He had to come to shore in a boat because he couldn't wade to shore carrying a 50 caliber machine gun. They're too big and heavy to drown. He also had tonsillitis and a temperature of over 100 degrees. At one point, he says, I remember the number 104. I don't know, maybe he was 102. He was very sick, but he didn't tell anybody because he was afraid that if they found out that they would have kept him in the infirmary on board the ship and they would not have allowed him to participate with all of his buddies in the action, and he wanted to do it. So he was 17 years old. It was really, really awful. That and the rest of the war, he's got all kinds of stories about. It did not make him a man of war. He used the GI Bill right afterwards. Quit the Marines. Used the GI Bill. Got his master's degree in forestry and botany. I don't know what his he's undergraduate in one and his graduate in another. And he hadn't even graduated from high school before that, but he got his GED. As a matter of fact, there was a young Japanese man. My dad was part of the occupying force just outside of Nagasaki uh, at the end of the war. And they were on one of the operations they were doing, they were dismantling a kamikaze training station, a base, with the planes and the pilots and stuff. And there was a young um, 19-year-old, so be the same age dad at this point, uh, young kamikaze pilot that he became friends with. And um, I need to get his name and I need to write it down because I wrote it down once and I always forget it. But he taught dad algebra and dad taught him English. And they did it all on the QT. They had business that where they were allowed to be interacting, but they weren't supposed to be fraternizing with one another. They weren't supposed to be making friends with one another, but they did. And it's one of my dad's favorite stories. He has some other favorite stories about his recognition of the humanity of the people around him, both Japanese and American. And that was just my dad. Um, he wasn't the kind of person to, swill in the VFW and, relive the old war stories, talking about, shooting up the Japs or anything. Man, that was not what he was like. And he spent the rest of his life caring for trees and loving trees and spending all of his time in the trees. They didn't fight one another the same way people did. Anyway, he's got an honor flight to Washington, D.C. in 2 weeks, as a matter of fact. And we're going to go and witness that. And I'm very excited. I need to lean into that. Anyway, it looks like I have almost done an hour, which means I will be ending this show very soon. I don't know how far I got into anything. Um, I want to assure us all that on the one hand, we are theft. No, that's not what I assure us. Uh, Things are always working out for us. It will be all right. The reason I brought the cymatics up, and because it almost seemed random now that I think about it, I need to fill this one in. So the times are changing. I think of this is a moment where it's like 1900 and your family fortune has rested on the buggy whip uh, building business, the buggy whip making business. And buggies are almost there's still a lot of horses and buggies around, and there aren't very many cars, but you're right on the verge of an absolute revolution where everything's going to be different. And if you see where it's going, you can line up with where it's going and you don't have to be so worried about where it is or where you are or any of that. Um, what I would do is I would lean forward. First of all, just lean forward in faith. Know that things are always working out for us. Things are always working out for me. They are always working out for us. Just relax. don't take everything so mm, so hard. Uh, so where are we going? Well, I didn't really talk about that much. I think that where we're going is good because it's going to include a an understanding and a use of source energy. That's going to be the key. Until then, you could just work with law of attraction and focus on all the things that you want, uh, just in general. Focus on your want, on the want of it. And I don't mean the yearning of it. I mean oh, that'd be great. Oh, yeah. That kind of, ooh, that energy. Yeah, that's what I want. That energy of I want it and I believe it's coming. Focus on that energy. Now, most people think they have to have a target of that. They have to have a specific target and then and you do kind of, but you don't really. You can rest in faith and look for the target. So many things to talk about. I started with do not believe anything that doesn't make sense to you. If what I am saying doesn't make sense to you, don't believe it because somehow, some way, you're taking it wrong. Or it would make sense to you. You're not taking it from the thread that I started with, passing through all the points that I meant to, winding up at a vantage point where I'm saying, "Look at the view," and if you can't see it, then we didn't do it right, and I don't want you to believe it. Only believe what makes sense from the beginning, and you will find a place in the end where faith goes appropriately. There is a place for faith. It's just not to bridge a logical gap. Where I sort of rested it for, and I did it unconsciously for many, many years. I sort of rested it here, and maybe it didn't make sense. Maybe it was ooh, it was almost feedback on my. I wonder what causes that. Uh, See, at the beginning, I saw these people in their faith getting up and bearing their testimony, and what they were saying didn't make sense to me. What they were giving credit to and the cosmology that they were describing, that didn't make sense to me. But I couldn't deny my own eyes and my own heart and my own feeling as I listened to these people that I cared about, that I knew they were friends, they were family, and they were obviously sincere about something. So what I saw was you're looking at something. I can't see what you're looking at. I don't understand what you're looking at, but you are sincere. And in your sincerity, you are acting thusly. That's what I took in. Now, what they said about what they now I have come to a place where I think I understand how it all fits together. It has to do with the inner being. Absolutely. Absolutely. Or what they would call the Holy Spirit. They're not wrong. They're not wrong. Now, their cosmology and even the way they've organized is actually not a bad thing because they've organized in ways that tip the hat to some realities of our life. the birthing of children and the raising of children and the pedagogical instruction all along the way, and then the joining with another and producing more children, and then there people die and you got to bury them, and some members of the congregation they struggle, they have problems. You help them with foodstuffs or assistance or whatever. It starts with a spirit. I have no idea what it would be like. I know that at one point I imagined how I could have joined this, truly joined into the spirit of this church while still honoring this very maverick voice inside of me and sort of making myself some kind of it would have been a clash, or there would have been results. It would have been interesting. I remember someone within the church, I telling them what I believed, and him sort of saying that the church needed my energy, needed my, please come and bring this and retranslate this religion into modern times. I decided I didn't want to do that, but I thought it was interesting that he thought I could. Anyway, I am an hour and 6 minutes in. Oh my gosh. Loosely speaking, this is supposed to be an hour-long show. I think I will post this just because it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know. I push against no one. Ultimately, I didn't even discuss free, clean, source-based energy. I did not. I believe that it is imminent. And as an energy source, it is not going to require the same kind of infrastructure that energy that we have conceived of so far, creating excess energy and then passing it down lines to uh, consumers who can, you know, they can capture it in batteries, or it can flow to them through a grid systems that chokes it down to a particular amperage and voltage that can be used, and then you standardize your technology to, operate on that wavelength and blah, blah, blah. It's not going to be like that. You're just going to be able to take your device and tune it perhaps to a frequency, or, you just somehow tune it into the field right wherever you are. It's going to level out the playing field a lot. It's going to give hope back to nature and the farthest reaches where mankind lives. Now, this is a delicate thing because we still live in a world of foolishness where there are tyrants who still want to subserviate others. And these creatures do not have the kind of wisdom and understanding that would be necessary to wield source energy. And if you have a source energy based weapon, for instance, now you don't have to reload. Who needs that? We don't need that. And I would hope that if we have any extraterrestrial, observers here on planet Earth, and if open contact is imminent, I would hope that somebody is stopping us from doing any kind of shit like that. Anyway, on that positive note, apparently, we are being stopped from geothermal nuclear war. That apparently is a line, is it, because it threatens other realities. That sort of collapse of the structure of reality in this region could affect other dimensions, and there is more interest than just in our planet in making sure that we don't do that. I notice on shows like Doctor Who and there's a and Star Trek, there's always this scenario where something is threatening the very fabric of reality. And I don't think that that happens all that easily, but maybe there is something to it. In any case, who am I? A worthy question to ask tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and who knows where this will lead. Right now, it just has led me to be able to talk about it more smoothly, more easily, and to add more of what I know into this and add it all up. Add it all up. Who are we? And what is the meaning of our lives? What's the object of the exercise? Where are we going? How does it work? All of those questions and more. On the flip side, I will be back. I will be back tomorrow, possibly. And until then, as always, may the source be with you.